How's everybody doing? Today's video is going to be another guitar unboxing. I probably won't play any music in this video in any kind of formal way because of the type of guitar this is, the setup that I want to do to it, and the fact that I'm very tired. So, the good thing about that is it won't be 45 minutes long. It's just going to be my initial unboxing and literally impressions on quality and things like that. So without further ado, let's get started. So I ordered this from Guitar Center. I felt like recently that I owed them some purchases because I have done probably more selling than buying with Guitar Center in the last couple of years, particularly when I moved to my house, and I kind of just needed to offload some gear. You know, I was able to finance a purchase of a storm shelter by selling a couple of Gibsons to Guitar Center, and at that time the money they offered was very fair for what it was, and so I just felt like I should, you know, I bought that Fender acoustic from Guitar Center, and I bought this guitar from Guitar Center just for that reason. Like I need to morally just give them some actual sales without selling a bunch of stuff. So this guitar is, as you can see, a Kramer. I've never had a Kramer before. They are, from my understanding, they are owned by Gibson, as far as Gibson owns the Kramer brand, so they're kind of in charge of it, but they don't make it. It's outsourced, so it's very affordable. This guitar, yeah, actually that would be correct, because it says it was shipped from Gibson Musical Instruments in Nashville to whatever the hell this is in Kansas City. So it looks like Gibson receives the Kramers in Nashville, and they probably do quality control setups or whatever, but they are definitely made overseas. So this is, we can probably see, well, let's see, so it's a cheap enough guitar that it doesn't come with a case. You get a couple of Kramer stickers, a couple of things. You get some kind of free something or other, access to video lessons or something. Like, they're competing with what Fender did, I think, with that acoustic. There's a lot of warranty info, Gibson numbers, and Gibson email addresses and things if you need help with it, so that's cool. Here we have, this isn't a box, it's just a cover for the headstock in the box. You have the trem arm and a small Allen adjustment, which would be to adjust the bridge. What's nice is it comes at least sort of double wrapped, because this one is a very soft material to keep prints and things off of it, and this is a weather resistant material. Because this guitar came from China. So, my initial opinion of this guitar visually is that I like it visually. The neck plate just says Kramer on it. It's got the typical covers you'd expect, being that it has a tremolo. It's, as you can see, a single pickup, single volume control. If you're just gonna have a single pickup, that's kind of what I would want. I've really never used a tone control on a guitar, so I don't think a tone knob is really that necessary. A neck pickup I do use on my Gibsons all the time. I switch pickups quite a lot. It's like second nature. However, for what I wanted to get this guitar to achieve, I wouldn't really use a neck pickup that much. And I don't know that I would use the guitar that much, which is why I went so affordable. Basically, I started listening to some Dorje songs, which I had not listened to in a while. I got on like a slight kick of them. And let me move this box. And so I basically thought, why don't I get something where I could actually play, you know, something with 25.5-inch scale. Something super stratty that you can get the strings a little bit tighter. You can do a couple of alternate tunings with if you want to, just to have around, knowing that I'm not going to use it a lot, because in the past I've had guitars that were worth upwards of pushing $1,000, and this was like over maybe 5 years ago or so. So those would probably be $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 guitars now that I had literally packed with features as if that was my main guitar, but I was only using it to play like drop C sharp, and I would play like 3 or 4 songs. And I can't really justify that kind of investment on an instrument now. However, this is not nearly that kind of investment, because this guitar is like $230, I think, $229 if I'm not mistaken. And for that value, just at a surface level, let me tell you why that's appealing to me. So this guitar is in like Squire territory, but the name Squire has been so ruined for me that even though there have been a couple of interesting models, and I know people have commented that I'm missing out on this recently, but I just can't bring myself to play another one, really. And the other thing is, Squires in this price point, even though they might have more electronics going on, they don't have more balls than this guitar, because this guitar, even though it's $230, it has a mahogany body, which you are not going to find a competing Super Strat with, period. So that right there could sell the whole guitar. And it has an Alnico 5 humbucker, probably cheaply made, but it's probably going to be decent output if I had to guess. And a maple neck. As you can see, there's no skunk stripe. It has a separate maple fretboard on the maple neck. So there's that. It has a 12-inch fretboard radius. So as somebody who, myself, I'm a Les Paul player that has a 12-inch fretboard radius, this is going to be very comfortable for me. That's probably something that Gibson decided now that they're sort of reviving the Kramer brand. But the sheer composition of this guitar for the price, you're not going to probably be able to beat at all. And if you can tolerate having one pickup, which I've I've never actually had a single pickup guitar, if you can believe that. I've never had like a Les Paul Jr. or anything with just one pickup, or like an Esquire or something like that. But to play sort of alternate tuning metal songs and things like that, I very seldom used the neck pickup. Like if I was going to play a song in drop C sharp, or even, I guess, in E flat, if it was on a Les Paul, I would use it, or on a Strat. But the other thing is, I've been wanting to toy with a guitar with one pickup because I have this idea in my head that it will help me improve my dynamics, meaning those little tricks you can do when you're playing any guitar, and it doesn't matter if you have one pickup, two or three or whatever, this would still stand and it still does work, but like you can essentially play in different areas of the strings, you know, closer to the bridge for more twang, closer to the neck for more thickness, and sort of imitate what an additional pickup would do. But it helps you as a player to know how those dynamics get applied. And I do know how they get applied, and I'm curious to see how much use I can get out of one pickup. Just by changing my playing dynamics, how I'm holding the pick, where I'm holding the pick. And really, this is not going to be like replacing my Les Pauls. Obviously, this is like a $200-something guitar. But this definitely has a place as another texture, as another tool to play other tunings and genres, or just even in standard tuning, it's going to sound different than what I'm used to. But anyway, it has a mahogany body, maple neck, one Alnico 5 pickup, and it has a 6-point, what I would call a one-way trim. I don't know if that's the official term, but basically the trim is just about resting on the body when it's in tune, and then you can dive bomb and come back to standard, but you can't pull because the body is flat, so you can't pull it back like a Floyd Rose, and you can basically dive, but you can't pull. So it's a one-way instead of a two-way. But the reason why I'm not going to play this right now is because I'm going to, if it hasn't already been set up this way, I'm going to really just slam the bridge down into the body so that I don't have to worry about it rocking, because I'm not going to use it. I don't want it to rock forward if I'm doing like a big bend, and then it detunes the other strings during that bend. So I'm basically going to make this, I'm not going to use the trem. I'm just going to use this as a alternate tuning, sort of playing around, experiment, see if I play any differently, and play some old songs in alternate tunings that I haven't played in a long time. I went back about a week or so ago and I watched a video of myself playing the Aromancy solo. Alright, so my memory card just got full for some reason. I guess it did not auto-delete when I imported my last few videos. But as I was saying, this is not going to replace my Gibsons as like my main guitar. I would be shocked. This is like a $200 import guitar. But it'll give me something else to use to practice on, to try go back to some alternate tunings and try to get a little bit more exercise. It's basically, this to me is a piece of workout equipment, the way that I'm looking at it. This is a very cheap, affordable guitar that does still have some balls. It still has a mahogany body. It should be pretty high output for the type of music it's geared towards, I should say. And maple neck, maple fretboard. The tuners are going to be cheap. The electronics are going to be cheap. The bridge hardware is going to be cheap. The pickup's going to be cheap. But like overall construction, my first impressions are pretty positive. Even at this price, I would forgive some blemishes, and I don't see any, obviously, yet. The finish looks pretty good. You know, the only bad thing about this guitar, on my initial impression, is that it has 2 stickers on it that indicate that it's made in China. I guess the good thing is that they put them as stickers, so it's not like, you know, on a Gibson where it's stamped into the back of the wood of the headstock. It says made in USA. It's not. It's made in China, so they just put stickers on here, which honestly I'm going to take them off, because who would want to think about a guitar being made in China? That's kind of a horrific downside to this guitar. But I guess that's how they're able to reach the price that they did with it. There are maybe a couple of blemishes on the actual fretboard. Like, it seems like maybe during the fret installation process, there's a couple of marks, but I mean, you know, you're going to see those marks on pretty much any guitar except for a world music instruments guitar made in Korea. You'll even see marks like that on a Gibson. I guess I didn't have marks like that on my custom, but that's a Gibson custom. So, you know, it's not a big deal. It's not something that you feel. You barely can see it, but if you're really scrutinizing the guitar like I have been, you'll notice it. And as far as the actual fret edges, I think they are passable. They're definitely not spending a lot of time on the fret ends being filed and polished and such on a guitar at this price. But I'll put it to you this way. They're definitely not any worse than any Fender product that I have played. So, you know, if you could tolerate playing a Fender product, you could tolerate these frets. They're not great. They're not going to hurt you, but they're not going to be super comfortable. They're not going to be like, oh, they're not even there. Like, you can feel that they're there, but they're not like, they're not going to cut you or hurt you or anything like that. It's comparable, I would say, to a Mexican Strat as far as fret end work, but keep in mind that guitar is like 5 times the price of this guitar, or four times the price. The nut is going to be a cheap point as well. This has got to be like just a plastic nut at this price. If there was one thing that I might think would actually be worth upgrading, if this was going to be like your workhorse, would be probably the nut. You'd want a nut that's going to be harder wearing. You probably want something like graphite or synthetic bone or whatever, because I'm pretty sure this is just a plastic nut, which you would expect at this price. But assuming that the electronics, as simple as they are, just the one pickup and one volume control and the jack, and then assuming that the bridge and everything is reliable if you use it a lot, which I'm not going to as far as the trem, the one point that I would probably upgrade would be the nut. What I think is interesting is the headstock shape is basically like the hockey stick headstock that Gibson has used on like the Explorer. I mean, I could be wrong about that. I don't know if there's much technical differences there. You can also see here that there's like a gold silk screen logo. It says Baretta Special, that's the model name. B-A-R-E-T-T-A. And, you know, the action from, you know, not really playing it, I haven't even tuned it yet, but the action is actually pretty comfortable. So I will say that the action height out of the box is great. The fretwork is okay. I would grade it like maybe a C or a C minus, but that's with me being very harsh. And I would say that's about as equal to what you'd expect on like a Mexican Strat, but this is much, much cheaper, so you got to be a little bit more forgiving there. So, yeah, there's very few flaws on this. The only flaws that I can see are little tiny dings on the fretboard that probably wouldn't even show up on camera. I don't see any finish flaws that are visible. Just overall, it's like a very flat white. I don't know if it has a name or if they just call it white, but it's just a flat white. There's no metallic to it at all. I'm a sucker for white guitars, as you know. Part of it is just that I think they're white and black guitars are unassuming, so you can kind of like you could play this at a wedding, you could play it at a bar, you could play it at a funeral, you could play it pretty much anywhere. And I mean, maybe this particular type of guitar, people might have some preconceived notions, but even it being white, people would be like, I wonder what kind of style they're going to play. So I like white guitars in the sense that it's kind of like a blank canvas. It's like white or black kind of has that same trait to me. But I will say that the main reason why I choose white is because I wear a lot of dark colors and it just kind of contrasts what I'm wearing. There's like a 99% chance that I'm wearing either black pants or a black shirt, sometimes both. So a white guitar kind of makes sense. You can actually see it. I don't go for black that much because of that. The neck shape itself, you know, having not really played it, it seems to be a very, what I would call very average, but it's definitely like thicker than like a wizard neck on an Ibanez or one of those, but it's kind of like, it's sportier than like a Stratocaster neck. The 12-inch radius helps with that, but just the actual back of the neck profile, it's pretty uniform. I don't know that it tapers a whole lot. I'm sure it does a little bit, but it's kind of like a C-shaped neck, I would say. Not bad. It would be hard for somebody to complain about this neck. It's definitely not a Strat neck, and it's not an Ibanez neck. So I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to borrow from like a slim taper Les Paul neck profile, but it's not necessarily small, but it feels comfortable, which is good because I like to have a really thick neck in my hand. But yeah. So this video probably still ended up being longer than I expected it to be, with just unboxing and my initial impressions of quality with this guitar, but those are my thoughts. I believe it has 10s on it. 10 to 46, which is kind of thick for a guitar with this scale length. In fact, I got to double check that actually. I'm pretty sure it's 25.5-inch scale. Yeah, so the scale length is 25.5 inches. It's kind of weird looking because the pickup that it has is angled, which is similar to the bridge pickup on a Strat. The reason they do that is because the closer the pickup is to the bridge, same as with your picking, the more treble you get. So the treble side of the pickup, as far as the string pitch, gives you more treble, and the bass side gives you more bass, which is kind of a nice feature considering it just has one pickup. They're kind of pitching it for everything it's worth, although it looks goofy. And the other thing that looks kind of goofy for this type of guitar, and I guess maybe not so much if it were an actual Strat, because it's kind of more rounded body shape like a Strat would be, but it's only a 22 fret guitar. So if you're like a super shredder and you've got little needle fingers and you like to use 24 frets, you don't have them, so you wouldn't want this guitar. But as a Les Paul player, I can definitely access the high end here better than I can on either Les Paul, even with kind of a blocky heel joint. It doesn't have any kind of sporty heel joint, it's just a block. But to me, this is narrow. Like, this is narrow as hell compared to a Les Paul's neck joint. But yeah, I like the materials. I think they knocked it out of the park with the materials, which is really the engine of the guitar. Everything else can be changed, really, besides the core materials. And I like that the jack is, I don't think I've seen a jack like this before, where it has no plate at all. So it must be, purely mounted behind this control plate. But it's like very sleek. So there's no plate to it, and it's a side jack, so it's not sticking out the front. I think it gives it a very clean look. Overall, if you can get over the fact that it's made in China, which, I'll just take the stickers off so I don't have to think about it. The value here is like outstanding. And also, when I looked up the scale length, I did see that the nut is molded plastic. So that would definitely be something to upgrade. If you want to buy one of these, like I said, the core materials of it are phenomenal, mahogany and maple. It's not going to give you the sweet sort of sing-songy nature that like a Strat would do with alder, but it's going to give you a lot more of a warm, sort of slightly gruff sound. But the maple neck, I think, is going to mellow out the gruffness, and you're just going to get kind of a nice warm sound. And I'm speculating this based on just the construction. And it has an Alnico 5 pickup, which also sounds warm. So yeah, I'm pretty impressed with this right out of the box. I can't wait to do some playing on it. I'll have to record separately after I make sure that the bridge is set up and everything how I want it to be. It has a very long serial number, so I guess they're really cranking these things out. The neck is, I will also add, if I could make this short video even longer, the neck is one piece until you get into the headstock, at which point, at about the first tuning head, there's a scarf joint because it's an angled back headstock, which is good. You do want an angled back headstock for stability sake. And it's obviously 6 in line, but it's not a reverse headstock. But I think it looks good. I think the actual appearance of this guitar is better in person than I thought it would be. I thought the paint would be kind of like maybe built up. Like if you were to get even an Ibanez that was double the price of this, there would be buildup of paint and like it would be running, and I don't see any like paint runs or buildup or globs or anything. I think it looks to me like they really buffed this very well, and they took pretty good care, even though it's a very simple finish, but it's easy to get globs and paint runs and things, even on a simple finish on an overseas guitar, trust me. So it's a very smooth finish. I like it a lot. The materials are good. The overall presentation of this guitar is great. And I can't wait to play it. So yeah, I'm going to make sure that it works, and then I'm going to take off the plastic films and the made in China stickers that I don't want to look at, and set the bridge up, and then we'll go from there. Maybe I can get some playing done in my next video, and yeah, if you guys own this guitar or have any experience with it, let me know what you think in the comments, and let me know if you can think of any alternatives in the comments. And I don't want to say please don't say a Squier, because I know I've had a really bad experience with a Squier, and it was basically terrible in every way. The fret ends were significantly worse than this. They would have really cut your hand. Like if you did this, you'd be bleeding. They would slice up a pair of pantyhose into smithereens. But, you know, the reason why I say don't say Squier to compete with this is because of the materials. There's not a Squier that's $230 that has a mahogany body. And that does make a huge difference in the sound. And there is a Squier that is maybe in the ballpark of this price that I looked at. And I thought it'd be really actually interesting to buy. And it was I think it's called a Sonic Series HT, which is like a hardtail. H, which is just a single humbucker. It had a pick guard with a single humbucker, not angled, and it was pink. It was like Pepto pink with a white pick guard. And I looked at it and I was like, you know, I would really consider cross-shopping that guitar with this, except that the body was like a non-wood. It was like poplar or basswood or something, which to me has no character. It just doesn't. Although appearance-wise, it was more interesting than this guitar. But I was like, you can't cross-shop something with a mahogany body versus a poplar body. It's two different, it's completely two different realms of instrument, you know, for what type of sound you're going for. So that's why I say don't tell me to cross-shop a Squier for $230. But if there is a Squier for $230 that has something besides poplar or basswood, then comment it down below, because I'm obviously uneducated about Squiers. I guess I could probably go to like a music store and play some more of them and try to change my mind, but this thing's pretty impressive. I like that the name Kramer, it's kind of a clean slate. You know, I think Gibson has owned that brand for a while, and they kind of just bought it and shelved it. I mean, maybe they made Kramers, but it's like you never heard about them. And now they're coming in swinging like $230, mahogany body, maple neck, an Alnico 5 humbucker. They're coming in swinging for people that want like a super strat, like no bullshit. So I'll be very curious to see how they do. And I hope that this guitar works well and it sounds good, because it looks great out of the box. You know, the only thing I would really change if this were going to be like my main guitar would be the nut, which is like easy enough to do. So if you like this video, don't forget to share it and subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you guys next time. And I'm throwing this in after the fact. I completely forgot to mention, I was just going off about the frets. The fretboard itself is, well, the fretboard and the whole back of the neck is all a very like matte finish. It's got like a very thin, it's probably a very thin poly finish that's on it, but it's not a glossy neck and it's not a glossy fretboard. So for this type of guitar, that's a very important distinction. It's kind of a satin neck and a satin fretboard. Totally worth mentioning, totally forgot that. I was about to walk out of the room and I was like, I need to actually say it's got a satin neck and a satin fretboard. So I'll cut that in when I'm talking about the frets.